And hey, we're glad to welcome Laurie Lieberman from the school board, running for re-election. Laurie, good to see you. And do you want to just start by talking about your campaign while you're running for re-election?
Sure. I'm running for re-election because it is my deep and abiding belief that public education is fundamental to opportunity, to democracy, to addressing the inequalities that have existed forever, but are more intense than ever at this time. I've been on the school board for almost 12 years now. I feel like I've done a good job relying on my skills and my experience to help lead in promoting policies that ensure equity and excellence in our schools, and to ensure that all students receive the highest quality education that our district can provide them. And it was almost 6 years ago that we hired Dr. Pedro Noguera to do an equity audit in our schools. I was very involved in helping to bring him here, and his report really charted a course for the district in terms of how could we address persistent achievement differences and improve overall student engagement and school climate. So he's not the only influence. His report is clearly not the only touchstone, but it is a major touchstone in our district for, are we doing what he suggested? Are we looking at the kinds of things that he noted and said we needed to do differently? Our district has a very good reputation. It has a strong foundation. And as a person who was a sociology major, as a young person many years ago, change takes time. And how you approach change is really important, how you get buy-in from people. I feel like I'm good at that. I feel like the kind of thoughtful, collaborative leadership that we need is something I'm good at, something I embrace. I don't want to talk the whole time about those things. I know you have questions, and I answered a ton of them, so you might want to ask about those. But those are some of the reasons I feel like I want to continue. I will say one thing. It's a very toxic world out there, not just nationally, but locally. You all know it. You're involved in it. And it's very hard to get people right now to want to step up and take charge and be elected officials. And that is clearly true in the school district right now. I'm hoping to help change that environment, to stand for something different than that, and that we will find wonderful people who want to run in the future too. But I feel it's very important to stand against that kind of negativity and toxicity, sort of for toxicity's sake almost, that exists out there. And so that's another reason I feel it's important to run one more time.
Cool. Thanks, Laurie. Let's go to Danny first.
Hi, Laurie.
Hi, Dan.
I know you mentioned,
First time.
yeah, I know you mentioned that obviously, like, because of the pandemic, the social mental well-being of our students is obviously likely not in the best place, with increased rates of anxiety, depression. Can you just talk about, are there, any specific initiatives or programs that you want to see, implemented that you think would go a long way in, hopefully starting to reverse that trend coming out of the pandemic?
I think there's a great deal of awareness in the school district about that phenomenon. I think teachers are aware of it. I think we need to help them see and identify students when they're in trouble. We need to, if we can, prevent any further decline, and we need to offer opportunities for kids to get help if they need it. The school district does have an ongoing relationship with the Venice Family Clinic, who is at our high school, our main high school at Santa Monica High School, 4 days a week. We need to be really clear with people that there are resources there on the campus. We need to connect people to other resources if they need them. I believe that there is going to be more state money to put into mental health resources, and that will enable us to consider things that we haven't been able to consider before, like whether we need more clinical social worker help, particularly, for instance, at high schools. they can also help train teachers in how to address what they see in classrooms, give them more tools than they have. It's something that's, I know I mentioned it in my questionnaire, it's clearly something that is important to keep on our radar. I mean, you probably all read in the local papers, the first day of school, there was a fight at Santa Monica High School. It was a small incident. It was 2 students only, wasn't something bigger than that. But in a way, it's a symbol of kind of what's out there. Kids have been isolated for a long time. They're still not totally, we haven't been able to make up for the lost time where everybody was in their own rooms and on screens like this, which I wish we weren't anymore. So I hope to do more. It's not entirely clear what all the offerings will be able to will be. You know, when my kids were in elementary school, there was actually we had a program the district did where families met. My kids went to Will Rogers Elementary School, where families met with a social worker as they entered the schools. And so not only did that sort of give you a sense of mental health from early on, but you gave a sense of what family circumstances were and what kind of support levels students did and didn't come with, and then helped teachers then have a roadmap for what kind of help they could provide and needed to provide. So, you know, I don't know whether that kind of thing exists or, you know, is out there in the same way that it was then, but that's a kind of thing we could explore. So, I mean, the resources are different for elementary school students versus high school students, and high school students can obviously access things themselves. So that's super important. The elementary school level is more on the teachers in a way, on the families.
Thank you. Dan?
Hi, Laurie.
I,
So I am a veteran, and safe to say I look at the world maybe a little differently and through some unique glasses than the average person. And one of the things that really concerns me about our schools here in Santa Monica is how painfully evident it is to me that particularly our elementary schools are very open to the streets and vulnerable to things like school shootings. You know, I walk past Franklin every day and I see windows that face the streets. I see chain link fences that I can peer through. You know, can you talk about the district's efforts to harden our schools in future designs so that we don't necessarily need to rely on guns in schools?
yeah, it's funny. I just asked the superintendent recently about. I know that our school district employees worked with the police department this week to review all of our safety protocols and to look at entrances and exits and what was available to principals, administrators in terms of letting people in, controlling volunteer entry into schools. And I honestly haven't seen the report yet, but there is one, and steps have been taken beyond what were already in existence. Of course, the recent school shooting in Uvalde prompted a closer look at that, and parents, veterans or no veterans, are clearly concerned and have a right to be concerned. It's really difficult, I think, to maintain a balance between turning our schools into fortresses and places that don't make children feel welcome and that scare them, while also making sure that they are as safe as we can make them, and that parents can feel comfortable that when their child goes into the school, somebody's not coming in behind them or going in through some other pointing through some other entrance that has no person at it or that's not locked. So yes, we have windows. I don't think we're going to put bars on all the windows. We're not going to look at something horrible like that. But for me, it's about achieving a balance between making things as safe as they can be, while also not making students feel like we are living in a military zone or something like that. And I think we've done a good job, but of course, the first time you find out you didn't is when something gets past somebody and it doesn't work. So I think it's something we really need to inform everybody of what the rules are. We need to get feedback as anything as we continue on now that school's back in session, and make sure all the protocols that are in place do make entrances and exits safe as much as we can.
Thanks, Laurie.
Let's go to Melissa.
Hi, Laurie. Nice to see you.
Melissa, you too.
I have a question, in part because, you acknowledged the climate and toxicity and some perceptions out there. It's no surprise to you that, some of your opponents and, the slate, the other slate out there, is saying things about the current board, not being fiscally responsible, that there's been too much time and money spent on sort of fighting about things or litigation or legal fees, and that the current board hasn't engaged in good governance. And I would love to know, generally what your response to that critique is.
I feel we've been, no surprise, responsible about trying to get our financial house in order. That's been painful at times. We've had to make cuts. We've made quite a lot of cuts to administration, probably more than a district would want to, because as everyone always says, you want to keep cuts away from the classroom. And so we've tried to do that. I'm trying to follow the flow of the financial part. I think we have been responsible. I feel like we've dedicated a lot of time and money and resources of all kinds to trying to address the opportunity gap. We can only do more of that, and that's to some extent an orientation, and it's ensuring that initiatives that are already in process get fully implemented. It's not all a question of money. But I think we're largely allocating money in the right places. One of the other critiques, I think, is that we're wasting money on bond projects. My feeling about that, having just come from a groundbreaking at Samo High this afternoon for a new building, is that people should tour and see the incredible work that's been done in the last several years, particularly at Samo High, but in Malibu as well. Malibu High School, on the elementary school campuses, we're modernizing campuses so that they respect the kind of work that's going on in classrooms, and respect what teachers do, respect what learners and teachers do in the 21st century, which is different. It's a different model. There was a lot of talk about that at the groundbreaking, and about more flexible classrooms, hands-on work, spaces where students can collaborate, can rehearse presentations, do presentations. It's a different time. And some of you on here went to school when I did, and some of you are much more recent graduates, and then your kids, like John's, are going to go to our schools. And we have to be prepared. We have to have facilities that are safe, that are healthy, and that really support the kind of learning and teaching that's going on in classrooms. So that's one of the critiques that I find to be just short-sighted. And to tie that back into the financial question, the pots of money are not understood by everyone, but money for capital improvements comes from a different pot of money than what goes into operating expenses. So we're not being foolish. We're not doing anything misguided. And for the most part, the money that we are able to use to modernize our facilities come from the generosity of the voters and in supporting bond measures over the years.
Thank you. Patricia?
Yeah, I first of all would like to suggest an answer to Dan's concern is Kevlar curtains, or not curtains, but either roll downs or blinds, will cost more in the beginning, but they're quietly safer. And in the windows like those at Franklin, if you can drop down a curtain with a single push of a button or drop of a cord, that helps. It doesn't answer the question, but it also doesn't scare children. On one of your challengers forms, he wrote that that the school district has 1.5 administrator per teacher. I found that to be not possibly true. Could you give us a better?
And you would know that, Patricia.
Well, no, I haven't been.
I mean, that was never true, obviously, but it's certainly not true now.
And some facts that are not alternative would be really good to get out there about the district. And what is the current ratio of administrators, and what is the current ratio of teachers? Because I believe that you have a lot more teachers now. We had much higher classroom loads than you have now, if I'm correct.
I think you are correct. I have a couple of people called me and asked me that question. It said that someone had said this, and I have to say I laughed out loud, but then I went and I verified that we have, I believe the district has around 90 administrators, and that includes principals, assistant principals, people who are considered administrators. And there are approximately, I think, 600 teachers. So do the math, that's kind of way up. It's not even upside down, it's crazy. So we do not have 1.5 administrators, actually you probably have 6 teachers to every administrator. And then I also asked that whole question. I mean, I was thinking maybe this person meant all classified staff, all non-teaching staff. I don't know what they were meaning to say, and I haven't read other people's questionnaires yet, so I don't know who said it or what exactly the context was, but that's not correct. And I have asked the district administration actually to make available what the real numbers are of classified, certificated administrator. They have started a new newsletter that's I forget what the title of it, but the idea is sort of, did you know? And so actually I suggested to Gail that they might put that kind of information in one of those upcoming newsletters, because it is worth people knowing, because fake news, as you say, gets spread really easily, and people hear that on the street and then they have no idea whether that's accurate or not.
The county office of education used to put out a fact sheet every year about every school, and it had a lot of that information in it. I don't know whether they still have the money or still do that project, but we always compared very favorably in just about every way. So
yeah, and you sort of touched on something else, which is about class size. So to my knowledge, our class sizes also are probably smaller than most nearby districts. And I know that there's a big push, at least on behalf of certain people, to reduce class size. But I think that that's sort of a not well understood slogan. And my understanding is that to really change outcomes, you've got to reduce class sizes by significant numbers, like 7 to 10 kids per classroom.
yeah,
To do something like that would cost, in a district our size, $20 to $30 million. And now, that said, wouldn't every teacher like to have smaller classes? Yes. And doesn't that give you more opportunity to work with students? Yes. So I'm not saying I'm opposed to reducing class size, but you have to understand what it means and what the context is, because I think, again, compared to other districts, our class sizes are pretty reasonable, and they are negotiated by the teachers union. So if they felt they were really off base, that would be a bigger point of negotiation.
Well, the most favorable outcome used to be, and again, I haven't been in touch with this for a long time, but the most favorable outcome of reducing class size by just a couple of students was greater parental satisfaction, and all the other outcomes in terms of the student were not impacted at all. So,
Right.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Laurie. Great to see you. And we
Great
look
to
forward.
see you all, and thank you all for all that you do.
Great, appreciate it.
Much. Thank you.